Hello and welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are building the city of Verde Beach. And in today's episode, we are going to work on the subway system and tram network. And this is an exciting build because I think that we can start to remedy some of this craziness that we're seeing with the buses at Verde Beach Central Station. So a big reason why I think that we're experiencing these issues is that our highest capacity forms of transit aren't going to the right places. So one of the other issues that I think that we have with our transit, our high capacity transit network, our metro and our trams, is that when you take a look, they're really complicated and the stop frequency is not all that great. So let's just quickly take a look at our transit network. And actually, let's narrow this in. So we're going to hide all of our buses, and we're probably good if we do that. So you can see that these networks are meandering all over the place. They're kind of going in circles and looping and forcing transfers and doing some pretty crazy stuff. So let's contrast that with our bus network. So when you look at the bus network, it's covering some places that nowhere else covers, which is to a certain extent to be expected. That's kind of the flexibility of buses. But at the same time, you see that we have all this backup. And I think it's the green line that's backing up. And one of the things that we're seeing is that, you see, we've got this dark green bus line. It's looping right here, going back around, going up here. It's actually kind of mirroring this subway line that we have. So the Sims are looking at this as a more desirable route. So this is something that we're going to want to eliminate when we get to our bus network. We don't want to have these mirroring routes. We're going to use the buses as first and last mile sort of circulators, and we're going to use our subway system to make sure that our origins and destinations are lined up well for really longer and higher capacity trips within the city. So the way that we're going to figure out our origins and destinations is actually to look at our population map. And what you can see here very clearly is where people live, and the other areas are destinations where people would want to go. So you can see right here, we have our industrial area. We've got a lot of population here, high density population along Sunset, in Cherry Hills. You can see that there's an office complex in this area, some commercial. So we want to make sure that we're hitting these areas in a very concise way, but also connecting those areas to some of these other destinations. So our university, our sports complex, our egg complex. So these are the sorts of things that we want to link up. And we want to do that in a way that makes sense. So one of the big critiques I have with the system, and I'm going to eliminate again these other forms of transit. We'll have just those that we're going to focus on today. So we have a system that has all these spurs and branches, and it's not really all that logical. So I think the very first thing that we're going to do is just simply go down the line and eliminate the existing service. So we had about 3,900 trips per week total, and we're going to see what happens when we make some changes. So now that we've added this monorail line, you can see that there's some duplication in our system, and we're going to want to eliminate some of that. So what we're going to do, so I'm looking at a lot of different branches and spurs, and I really don't like what's happening. So I think we're going to eliminate a great deal of this system. You might wonder, how reasonable is it for the city to go through and just eliminate these subway lines? Well, it does happen. I wouldn't say it's something that's super common that you get a big reconfiguration like this, but it does happen. I think especially in an area where you're just not seeing the trips making a ton of sense, where you're not getting the ridership, you might go out with a referendum and ask, could we spend X number of dollars to completely overhaul the transit system over 40 or 50 years or something? So this wouldn't be a project that Verde Beach says, we want to spend the money right now and we'll have this thing done in a couple years. This would be certainly something that would take decades. But it's a game, and we can take some liberties. So I'm going to go through now and stop talking and just eliminate the rest of these lines, because we're going to reconstruct them entirely and make them much more efficient. Okay, one more line and I think we're good. Okay, so I think we have all of our lines completely empty at this point. They're not connected. They're just, except for this one going to the airport, there's no real reason to demolish that line. So we are going to keep it. So one of the things that I want to think about quite a bit is, we have some of these stops. So we've got this subway stop here. This was placed before we ever had all these buildings. And there's two ways to make this particular stop good. We could have had a path through here that would have made some sort of connection, or we could have placed this right on Sunset. We did neither. So we have this path, or this metro station that's next to an oil industry main building. Not, some low density residential, not the greatest location. So what we're going to do to fix this is we're going to place this building right along Sunset, or at least in close proximity to Sunset. I don't know how close we can get it. We're going to have to use eminent domain. And the way that we're going to justify this is by saying that we have all of this property that we can now redevelop and put these stops in. So we're going to kind of go down the line and make some fixes. And what I'm thinking is, so we're going to want lines that go straight down, and then rather than looping these lines, we're going to have stops that go in the opposite direction and send lines up and force a transfer above ground rather than having this all happen underground. Now, in reality, I think that most of this would happen underground, but I don't know that. I'll go through the assets to see if there's anything that I could use, but I don't believe that there are any in the game. So this is probably the one that I could use, the Metro Underground Plaza. There could be some justification to use it somewhere in an area like this. Unfortunately, the problem when you look at it is it's just a very large asset. So even though we have the money for it, even though we have the need for it, it's just a really difficult asset to place without destroying a block or something like that. That said, maybe we will go that route. Yeah, so as I go through these, the only thing I could really do would be to significantly rework a block in downtown. We may do something like that. I don't see it as really reasonable at this point in time. I think that we're already going kind of above and beyond in terms of reasonableness. So we might just settle for some of our old assets, but use them in a more logical manner. So one of the things I absolutely want to make a point of this time around is minimizing the number of turns that we have. So we had a lot of turns before, some sharp turns that really slowed down our subway stations, and that's not at all desirable. The other thing I want to look at is, so right now, there'd be an opportunity to transfer. We have another one right here. So having one in the middle wouldn't be the worst idea. And we don't have to use much eminent domain there because there was a one tile building in that location. You can see that now that's a gentle turn. So I would love to keep this on the same block, but going one block off is not the end of the world. So I think that we are going to gently move this one and make our connection. That one is, again, another transfer opportunity. This would be as well. This isn't, in my mind, the greatest location. We might relocate this one probably somewhere in this vicinity that's about equidistant between this stop and this one. And we will finance that by eliminating this, and now we'll have another office type user in that particular location. And now I think our next stop is going to be Central Station. That's nice and straight. So from there, we had a stop here. I don't think that this one is all that necessary anymore. So we're going to eliminate that because we already have some of our other stops, and I'd really rather get our main line to connect up to Hamilton Hills and then have our final stop be right here in Verde Beach. So I think we are going to keep these stations and just try to simplify this route. And that line is complete. So I think we can get this running. So you can see that what this line is doing is really connecting pockets of density to a couple of core destinations. And I think this is going to be very beneficial to the city. It adds a couple of new stops. Now, one of the things I noticed over here while I was over here is that we have this kind of this cross design, and we're not using part of the cross. Now, one of the things that I think we could do, we have some space over here. It'd be really nice if we could fit in a stop close to the harbors and just kind of keep people from crossing the road. It's a very expensive project, and truthfully, it's not going to work. So we're probably just going to leave it as is. Kind of unfortunate to waste that, but not much we can do about that. It's just that the location of the airport is kind of what it is. So, all right, so now let's go back to our buildings view. You can see that there is a corridor of density right here. Interestingly, let's see what we have zoned here. We have a kind of a commercial corridor coming right up here. What road is this? Is this Vine Street? So we've got kind of a corridor of commercial right up here. So this is all destinations. And then we have our subway lines. Really kind of nothing happening right here. So let's take a look. Oh, we have a stop right there. That's perfect, because what I was thinking is it'd be really great to have another line going up and down this road with an opportunity to transfer in close proximity. So one of the unfortunate things is it's possible to overlap these, but it can be a challenge, particularly when we don't lower the subway line. So with this one, we didn't lower it. We could have kind of cheesed that a bit. But what we're going to do, I think, is just back this up. So that'll be a close enough walk that the Sims will take it. Oh, and I'm on the wrong side. Well, we're going to move these anyway, and we will take all of this extra land that we are obtaining. We'll try to use some of this empty land as well. Slope too steep. Interesting. What is happening here? Well, it doesn't like that location. So, and it's interesting. You can see that there are a number of undeveloped parcels in this area, and I'm wondering how much of that has to do with slopes. Let's rezone some of these and see if it fixes anything. So other things can develop here. And these are uses that, you know, I think would go well together, so I'm okay changing the zoning there. We'll say that a developer came in and recommended that because that parcel's been sitting vacant for so long, why doesn't the city take advantage of that and do something? So I think that these other two stations were too close together. So what we're going to do is try to mirror this on Vine. We might back this out just a little bit. Now I'm actually seeing why we did this. So maybe we won't. So what I do want to do is I want to start our line that's going to go in the opposite direction. And then we'll add those stations there. Eliminate this, and we will sell that little chunk of land for a residential development. Same thing over here. Residential. And now let's get our line connected. And while we're doing this, let's make sure that we're naming these, because I don't want to have to do it after the fact. So this was the airport sunset line. That'll be the Vine Street line. And what you can see that I'm doing here now, and I truthfully, there's a big part of me that wishes that this stop was on the other side of the block. I'm going to call them all again. Just a little one. So I'd love there to be a line of sight between these stations. And that is why I am reconsidering my initial plan there. Not sure if this is going to fix itself. No, but I can. So now you can see that you could easily walk up a block, across a local street, and get between these stations. And I really, really wish that it was more simple to move this right here in this corner so that you're kind of just walking up that same block. But it's not going to be that easy. But now this transfer is going to occur very simply. And I'm curious, if I speed this up, will we see lots of people coming back and forth between the two? You don't necessarily see it yet, but it will happen with time. So this will become kind of a transfer between these two. So we've got that line going, and that is good. The next line is we're going to have another kind of east-west, if we want to consider it that line. And that will connect up here, which is kind of a no man's land right now. We never actually zoned any of this property out here. That's a later day project. And now we have stops that are just simply too close to one another. So we're going to take this one out. I don't think that one, people can walk to one of these other two. There's a great deal of pedestrian connectivity. And we want the money for, we want to be able to sell that land so that we can fund all of these crazy infrastructure projects that we are currently undertaking. So we'll have one there, and then we need to take this one and connect up to our stadium district, but we're going right through the Indy Club district. I think that we could potentially have one more stop. The unfortunate thing is we're really far away. In fact, what I'm thinking we might do is just pull this back closer to our train station. It's nice to have it right there, but people can walk a block. What would be more useful would be to actually have this with a bit of synergy with our other forms of transit. So we're just trying to make sure that there are always opportunities to make transfers between modes of transit, especially the higher capacity modes of transit. So this one, again, we're connecting a whole bunch of density to some destinations and offering opportunities. Now this would stink, I'm not gonna lie. Transferring onto the subway a couple times to get here, maybe not ideal, but we are going to have multiple different alternatives to get there. We're going to name this our party line, because if you wanted to party, this would be the subway line you would take. You get to Gombe, you could get to Indy Club, you could get to a concert over in Sugar Hill at the at the Fireman's Park. So there's a lot of things that you could do here on this particular line. So lots of good stuff. I think that if you wanted to, and maybe you would extend this out just a little ways to again have some synergy with this line. We could have another station over here and maybe even extend this into our oil district, but it might be a little overboard, truthfully, at this point, because you could still get around for the most part. I think that there would be some value in one stop over here, though. Okay, so we fixed this line, and now this at least offers people coming in from this train station the opportunity to hop on the subway network and get to the rest of the city. So, and that's another transfer opportunity. It's kind of a redundant mode because you wouldn't need to necessarily. I believe that there's a connection between these two lines, but you could get off here and transfer into one of these other, get deeper into the district rather than kind of being stuck here. So I think that works. So next, we know that the busiest line here was going to the university. So we have this old university line and we have this line here. There's just kind of a lot of stuff going on. What I think we're going to do, this line right here, I don't love this location. This is truthfully really serving the Verde Beach government complex. And what I think might be better would be to have some sort of connection over here going straight up into this district. It doesn't even have to necessarily have a ton of stops, but that might be the more direct route. That said, because we already have this stop here, we might continue doing what we have been doing. I'm talking myself into both directions, truthfully, because it's just kind of a tough one. The other thing is we have all of this density. And to use eminent domain in one of these buildings is really a challenge. I would imagine that this would actually be built inside of the building rather than taking it away. But this is a game, and we're going to do what it wants, which is to use a great deal of destruction to make this development occur. Boom. But we're going to mirror that on both sides. And we're going to change things up here a bit. So this is going to be a very simple, short route. Now, I think that we probably, if we were going to get wild, could have another... Whoa, what's going on here? Okay, no, it is there. Okay. So we could try to make this connect up over here. Might not be the worst thing in the world. This might be where things aren't quite as legible, and that was kind of the thing I was trying to prevent. But in this particular location, I think that it works out okay. Make this one our government district line. And it is unfortunate that the main district that this is trying to connect forces this crazy pedestrian connection, but it's already there. People are already used to it, and it's going to be a lot cheaper to reuse this particular station than it is to blow up our government district. So we will consider that an okay compromise in this particular location. You can already see that we're getting some good utilization. Interestingly, we're getting a lot of tourists on our subway lines. Very interesting. So, but they're working out all right. So now we need to rectify this. And one of the issues that I have here is that the line is going to turn. And rather than having a gentle turn, what I have is a pretty stark turn. And I don't want that to occur. So what I need to do is find a way to get this to gently turn. So having this, instead of on this block here, I think we're going to try to put that over here onto Greenaway Street. So we're going to relocate this. Not as much density here. So we're taking out low density buildings and replacing that and gaining some high density residential space here. They'll walk over to here. These are all local roads. It's not the end of the world. And then we're going to relocate this station, which is in a higher density district, and try to line that up right here with, what is this road? This is Bass, I believe. We're going to line this up with Bass. So kind of mirroring that high density, high frequency corridor here. And we'll have a stop right about here where the density is not quite so high. Actually, this is a pretty low density area within this corridor anyway, so it's not the end of the world. So we'll make our connections here. And again, this will allow some fairly quick transfers. Oh, I like that. So now our next issue is going to be the university. So the university has an interesting dilemma, and that is that the university is connected, very directly to this route. We don't have a nice connection between the university and this area over here. We're forcing everyone to walk. So that's one of the reasons why buses are going to be very well utilized there. I don't think that we're going to improve that. Not with the subway anyway. We are going to bring the subway into Old Verde Beach for the first time. But I think that what we're going to do is open up some transfer opportunities and kind of call it a day there. Now, this is a challenging spot to actually make connections in. Part of it is we have all these fences, but I think we can add it here, and then people are at least on the same block. And this will go right underneath the zoo, which initially when I planned all this, I was really trying to avoid that. But hindsight being 2020, the zoo animals will be fine. There are subways in very urban areas. They'll be fine. So you see that this is another very direct route. And you start to see what these lines are doing. This is mirroring, this is kind of our rear east-west. This is our main east-west, and then we have some north-south corridors connecting into the city. And these are lower density areas, so I don't know how far we want to extend in. That said, this area right here in particular is kind of our high density corridor in Old Verde Beach. So maybe we could have one more subway stop in this area. I think it would be appropriate, and we get some decent ridership. So I'm going to add one more here. I'm going to kind of shoehorn it back here though, where it's not quite as built up. We'll make this the Bucs Line for the Buccaneers. And I think that this really improves the legibility of the system. I think that being able to take an east-west route and transfer to a north-south route would make a ton of sense. The one thing that we're lacking in is this is kind of operating a lot like contemporary American transit systems in a very bad way. And that is, so imagine this being a downtown area and suburbs. Now these aren't suburbs, obviously. These are dense urban neighborhoods. But one of the things where transit systems often fail is that it's really easy to get from anywhere to the downtown and really difficult to get from the outer areas to another outer area. And you see the exact same thing here. If you're in the Gombe district and you want to get to the good old Institute for Conservation and you want to make sure that you are utilizing the subway system, the big issue that you're going to have is that you have to, first of all, I'm going to reconsider what I did here, and I might actually extend this route over. So one of the reasons I say that is, so you finish a football game, you don't want to walk, you want to be able to take the subway and get back to your dorm. You are going down the Verde Beach government line, going to Central Station, walking 2 blocks, getting on this line and coming back, all to travel, 5 blocks. That's not ideal. I think ideally, and maybe this is where I'll deviate just a little bit from my initial plan, if I can fit in a line here, which I don't think I'm going to be able to, I'd love to have a line directly within this campus where I could make this connection, but it's just not going to work because of the distance. Kind of the only thing I could do would be to repurpose this, kind of turn it and do something pretty hokey. I really don't want to do that. I want to make these legible, so I'm going to avoid that. And we're going to have to look at other modes of transit to facilitate this trip. So I think our subway system's good. I think that we're in a spot now where we don't have necessarily the same number of trips just yet. I think that's going to improve over time. I do want to see, let's back out. We'll take a look and see if there are any particular subway stations that are backing up a lot. Still got this bus. And I want to eliminate the Buccaneer Loop now. That is not a valuable trip for us anymore. It's completely duplicative, and I think forcing some of these folks to take other modes of transit will actually help us. So we're going to do that, and I think that that's going to improve the number of trips that we have here. This is kind of me fudging the game a little bit, and you see all these people. Holy cow, look at that. They're all streaming to the subway because we have facilitated this trip with our subway line, and that's going to see this just absolutely go through the roof. Now, I don't know how many subway trains we actually have on the Buccaneer line. 2 vehicles. Interesting. So that maybe it'll be enough after this clears out. Let's take a look at each of the lines. 200. Yeah, we're probably okay once we get past this initial crush of people. We'll have to keep an eye on this particular stop though, because man, is it full. And you see that these cars are full and have been full, and so they're likely passing people up. Let's see if people get stuck here. Yep, they're passing up 30 people. That's a problem. So we're going to want to think about, I'd like to get maybe one more vehicle on this line. And maybe that will relieve some of the issues that we have here. We had 400 waiting at one point. And I'm real curious. Now that we have these two coming, are these two going to clear this? I don't think that they're going to. It might be close. So here it is. We're down to 250. That's still not good. We're still leaving people there. We're leaving trips unfulfilled. We'll go even higher. We'll get 4 vehicles on here. I think that that's probably going to do the trick. So, now that we have this higher capacity transit, now you can see that we're right about where we were. But the big difference is that when you look here, holy cow. There's a lot of people. There's certainly a lot of people, but we don't have that bus backup. Now we do have a lot of people walking. That's unfortunate. I wish that we could have gotten this closer. And especially with Bass Street being right here, this could be a problem. We're going to need to keep an eye on that. We're probably okay. The bigger issue is probably with this person getting sick because of the noise of the subway now. Well, we've got to fix for that. We've always got to fix for that. Well, they're sick, but they look stylish while they're sick, so that's something. And, this is one of the mechanics that really bugs me about the game. It would be such a great boon to these people to live that close to a transit system. The land value here in Pearl Hills would shoot absolutely through the roof. It would be amazing. Yet here we are with sick people because it's too loud. There's a subway station right next to this. Now, let's say nothing about the emissions that are no longer occurring in this area. We're going to worry about the noise from the subway. Maybe that'll help have a tree-lined street here. Nope, still mad. Well, you can't please everybody, I guess. Well, now that we've got our subway done, and look at that, we're now eclipsing where we were before. I do think there would be value in continuing to look at these other lines to make sure, let's just make sure that we don't have any passing up occurring. You see it here? We have hundreds of people queuing. And we've got multiple stations like that. And this is a really long line. So we might just crank this up. We'll double the number of vehicles on here. And hopefully that will clear some of this madness. You see the vehicles are all next to each other. 400 people here at this particular stop. Holy cow. At the airport, 1,200 people waiting. 300 here. Holy cow. Yeah, we might need to go even higher. Well, I'll tell you what, we're gonna take this one to 300%. Actually, we'll do 4. We're gonna crank this one. And we're gonna take a break from this particular line. We'll come back to that one and see how that looks afterwards. Because I think that number of vehicles has to clear up the queue. I could do the math and there would be a much better way of looking at that. But I think at this point I want to clear it out and then we'll back it down from there. We're not going to use the most scientific approach. Here we're doing okay. We've got one stop that looks like it's very busy. Interestingly, that's like right in the middle of the block. So we only have one vehicle. So as this approaches this particular stop, it's already full and we're leaving people behind. So let's increase this to 2. We'll take a look at the government district. Again, we have 1 or 2 stops that are, well, this might be fine. So let's see. So we left a couple people behind here. I'm not overly concerned. This one's more concerning to me. So this stop right here, which is right at this train station, did not clear its queue. So we're going to increase this one. We'll add 1 vehicle to this line, and that should be enough to clear out that queue. We'll see how the party line's doing. Again, we've got one of these. The end of the line over here by Gombe is really packed. And then we've got one at the other end by Sugar Hill Fireman's Park. That one is also completely clogged up. So what we're going to do is, you can see that this is passing this with 2 vehicle capacity. So I think we're going to double this again. And that should put us in a place where hopefully we're clearing that. And again, this is a residential, primarily a residential serving line. 62% car trips saved. That's something I'm kind of curious about with the rest of the lines as well. So the Bucs Line, this one's in a good spot. This one, 85% car trips saved. Let's organize this by name. We'll look at that. Let's look back at this. Vehicles all over the place. You can see that this one's the one that was really tricky, and it's heading in the right direction. Granted, we've got subways on subways on subways on subways, but it's at least going in the right direction. So this one, 100% car trips saved. So this is a very important line. You see that it's starting to clear out some of these queues, but all of these vehicles are absolutely packed to the brim, packed to the gills as soon as they reach there. So we need all of these, unfortunately, all of these vehicles that are serving this line. That's kind of what happens when you have a long line. This one's 14 kilometers. Lots of utilization. It's really the backbone of the entire system, serving both residents and tourists. You can see there's a good division in between even the ages of folks that are using this. So it's a very important line. I'm okay having all of these subways here kind of going up and down this line, as long as we keep this completely empty, which is looking more and more challenging. This airport stop is really challenging. It's really challenging. And this makes me wonder if maybe there's some sort of express that we could have with this other line directly to Central Station. Maybe that would have an impact on this. It is starting to clear up, but as quickly as it clears up, it seems like we get another couple hundred people at this stop. That said, look at that. We're down to 900. So maybe I just need to be patient. Let's look at our other lines real quick. 72% on the government line. 63 on the party line. 48 on the Vine Street line. That's interesting. Not saving as many car trips here. That's okay. So we've certainly cranked up our transit service here. From a traffic standpoint, we're at 85% now. So that's outstanding. 84, 85. I'll take that any day of the week. The last bit I want to do in this episode is I want to take a look at what we're doing with our tram. So our tram's been kind of this weird service that doesn't really, it's kind of listless at this point. Like, why do we have this service? So I like what it's doing. I just don't like where it's doing it. So right now what this line is doing is it's kind of serving this area, connecting Old Verde Beach to our tourism district. And that makes perfect sense to me. What I don't like is that we have this high capacity transit corridor that could be very valuable. And rather than sending it down a highly visible corridor that's well connected, we're sending it down this side street, which made sense when it was initially constructed. Now I'm not sure that I love it. So what we might consider doing would be to actually send this, we'll continue to have this loop, we'll send it down Main Street, come over here down Semper Verde, and then go down, is this Sunset? Yeah, it's Sunset. So we'll go down Sunset and do the loop that we have been doing. So the purpose of this will really be to maximize our coverage. This will be to supplement our future bus service. We're not using it. This is not super fast. We're not super concerned about that. So let's get converting on some of these streets. You can see that we just take it off here, and I want to change that. So you might wonder why I'm going all the way up here. That's mainly so that we have some sort of synergy with our bus. Okay, so we've had our trams going all the way down to the Lewis Lumber Company. and we are going to stop that. I do want to take a look at this route first so I understand what I'm eliminating, because I do think that we are going to want to think about this in the future. So we've got 15 vehicles with 20 stops serving 215 passengers. Not surprising. It is serving a destination, but it's not doing a very good job of it. You can see that there's a lot of stops here, and it's just not that desirable an area to have this kind of transit. I think that this would be an area much better served by buses, so we could be flexible as things move. We could change our bus route. We've got this line, and truthfully, we could just eliminate it at this point in time. So we've got this line over here doing lots of things, and we are going to pull it off and have it do things over here instead. So we're going to remove these stops. Hopefully that will be enough to get it to switch roads. And we've got lots of stops here to maximize our coverage. And this is the game plan of this. It'll provide a transfer over to both the subway and this monorail line, so you could get lots of places. You'd also have the opportunity to get onto the subway here if you wanted, and truthfully, you might look at this particular stop and move it. Yeah, I think that does a little bit better job. Now you can get off here and walk around the block and get to the subway. So again, it's giving that interface opportunity with our existing system, and now we have lots of roads that we're going to need to convert into regular old roads. And I think that we're going to take this opportunity to have tree-lined streets here. Oh, this is just... That's unfortunate. So this was just a monorail street. Or a tram street. So as a result, we just totally took it out. Took out everything around it. So these areas still have fairly good access. It's just that we're moving it a block over. There's not a lot of traffic on this particular corridor, but one thing that we've done now is this side of Old Verde Beach had great access to transit, and now this side does as well. They can both walk over to Main Street to get on the tram, which is a really big boon to this entire area, in my opinion. So where they did lose transit access is going down this road. This is really expensive transit to have going down a road like this. And one of the things that I'm seeing as I look at this is there's just not a lot of traffic. I think we might actually put this road on a road diet. And what we'll do is, knowing that we have transit coming here in the future, we're going to reduce this down. We'll have a transit lane here. In the future, when we have our bus lane, at least this will be prioritized. We're not doing anything in terms of right-of-way, the elimination of it, or requesting more and adding on. We're just repurposing the existing right-of-way. Actually, I was starting to add some really nice streets over here. This is an industrial district, and we can have industrial roads. In fact, we probably should have had industrial roads all the way along here, but we didn't. So we can make those couple of changes while we're in this area. Now these roads are a little bit louder, but the maintenance cost is way less. So I look at that as a win for this area. So I thought it'd be fun to upgrade some of these really old roads that we have through here. And we don't have enough right-of-way to actually do this without moving things. So we'll keep that one old dirt road through here, and people will wonder why. It's because the city doesn't have enough right-of-way to do anything better there. So we are stuck with it. But this is significantly better than it was before. So let's take a look at what our transit ridership looks like now that we've made our changes, and we got this up to over 5,000 trips a week, which is awesome on our just residents. On our tourists, we're looking at 2,500, when we look at our traffic, we're at 86%. 85. We're in an awesome spot. Now, there are a couple of targeted things that I think we could do to make this even better. So there are 2 more things I want to do in the episode. Number 1, I want to make a key connection over here that I think we're missing. And number 2, I want to plant trees along Sunset, because that was a critique that I received, and it's one that I take seriously. We don't have enough landscaping. We could fix that. So there's a bottleneck. So these 2 districts are working together, but there's only 2 ways to get there. You can either go down River Street, or you can go down Semper Verde across the highway through the double roundabout. It's not ideal. But what would be ideal would be having a local connection through this area. So what we're going to do is we're going to extend this road. We are going to say that this is getting this is being rebuilt. It's very old at this point in time. And the city's going to come in and use it as an opportunity. Say, we'll give you some of this right away from the highway if you allow us to build our road here. So I'm going to build this right here. We'll cross the highway. Oh, we have an earthquake sensor here. We will need to relocate this earthquake sensor right along the highway, the absolute best place for it. And we wanted to move this deep space radar anyway for a long time, not overly concerned about this location. This is very ugly. We are going to improve this. We cannot settle for that. That's terrible. So there's a significant topographic challenge here. You see that we're going up, so I think I actually need to take this bridge even higher than I was taking it. So I was going up 3, and I think I actually need to go up 4. That's not perfect, but it is significantly better. So this connection right here, I think is going to take a ton of pressure off from Semper Verde. So the other thing that we could have, we could probably have 2 of these if we really wanted to, but that one is probably good enough. And you're going to see a lot of traffic funneling down through here. Just so I remember where this is, I am going to upgrade this road. We got our fire department here mucking things up for us. So this is a very important connection now. Let's see what this road is called. Water Street to Juniper. We'll meet it there. Water Street will meet up with Juniper here at Elm Street. Again, our small right-of-ways. So maybe I just need to be okay with some dirt roads back here. They're not hurting anything. You can see that there's already traffic coming down here. This already looks lighter. Let's take a look. Yeah, this is already a heavy corridor, very important corridor already. So we could certainly do one more connection if we wanted. I think that what would rationally probably happen here is this might be re-angled, because obviously the dominant movement here is this. So I think that the city might work to acquire this property and 90 this up, because right now this is a really challenging turn. Plus we have all of these stop signs, kind of remnants, or all of these signals, which are remnants of our previous system. So this might help as well. Okay, so I think we're in a better spot. Yeah, this is functioning at this point as a collector. And you can see the amount of traffic it's carrying. Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, that's okay though. That is completely okay in my book. We've got heavy spots, but we don't have a lot of stopping. So I think we're in a good spot with that. 86%. 86, and it's hanging there for a little bit. So that's awesome. So what we're gonna do now, one of the things that was mentioned is that in the comments is that it's really a shame that we have this corridor which had all these trees before, and now it's empty. So what I'm gonna do is go up and down this corridor and make sure that it feels like Verde Beach we're going to add some palm trees. We clearly had a fire in this area. So we're going to just continue to increase the flammability of this area. Oh my goodness. We finally did it. So we made it all the way up and down Sunset and added some trees. And you know what? You guys were right. It looks a ton better with some palm trees. It feels like a vacation. So what started out as maybe some guerrilla urbanism, some residents going out and planting a couple palm trees in some right-of-way that was underutilized. Maybe we got the Arbor Day Foundation involved and they helped make this a tree city. The city really decided to double down and make sure that every square inch of landscaping of land that was not landscaped could indeed have a tree planted on it. And you can see it breaks it up. There's sometimes these walls of buildings and that can feel okay, but having that greenery in there, man, that feels good too. That feels real good. I really like this, and I hope it appeased Myrtle. You know, we had a fire problem over here at the start of the episode. We have one over here. I don't see any fires, so maybe she's okay. Maybe she's okay. So we have accomplished the goal for this episode. Let's check out how it is doing now that we've let this run a little while. And yeah, wow, 5,400 resident trips per week, almost 3,000 tourist trips per week. Let's take a look at this main line, see how we're doing. We have, for the most part, cleared things out. A couple hot spots right here where we're forcing that transfer. Not surprising that that's seeing a lot of activity. Not surprising that we're getting a lot of tourists on this particular line as well. I mean, we certainly have our monorail to take a great deal of this. When we take a look at it, we see that, wow, there's actually a lot of residents taking the monorail. Yeah, the monorail has a lot of residents taking it too. That's not a huge problem. At least we're able to accommodate these trips on transit. And what that ultimately means is that we have 86% traffic flow because we're keeping people off the roads and on transit. And we have our policy, I believe it's citywide, to ensure that people are taking transit. Yes, free public transit. We're good. So I'm going to leave it here. I'm very pleased with how this episode turned out. I think it's really improved the city. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please consider giving me the like button, hitting the like button. If you aren't subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. And if you want to be notified when I release new content, hit that notification icon. I also want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters. Their support really helps me to elevate my content, improve my equipment and my setup so that I can keep improving the videos. And I also want to thank you. Your likes, your subscribes, they increase the reach of the channel, which is incredibly helpful. I want to leave you with a brief city tour, and we'll start that right now.